Okay, here we are at Avebury. The stone circle of Avebury is, according to this sign, approximately 6,000 years old. There's one of the famous British Land Rovers heading down the road. And we are at the outside edge circumference of the Avebury stone circle. That gate leads you to one direction of the outer ring, and this gate leads us to the other direction. This is the moat in the center, or not the center, the moat is at the edge of the circle. There's several concentric rings inside this moated area, and the moat originally was, you can see the steep bank on the right of the original moat. It was originally at its deepest point 30 meters deep, which is around 90 feet, but it's all since filled in with silt, so a lot of the earth that you see in the bottom of the moat was originally dug out. So yeah, in some parts of the moat it was 30 meters deep. Now we're coming into an open area, and we just passed that giant stone, which looks like it might be tipped over. It was probably originally standing upright. And so a lot of the stones from this site have been quarried, meaning that the locals a few hundred years ago used the stones to build their own structures, like churches, homes, and other buildings. And so the stones at this site no longer are here because they were quarried and brought to other places. The people during the Middle Ages that lived here did not see the important significance of Avebury monoliths. They just simply thought it was an interesting structure, and they removed the stones to use them for other purposes. So isn't that right, Alex? A lot of the stones are no longer on this site that were originally here.
Yeah, so you can see there's a couple of stones remaining in this part of the stone circle. Then here we've got a big gap. So there would have been stones all along here, but there's a gap until we meet the next stone just past the people walking there.
Yeah, so there was literally dozens more stones here.
There were 99 stones in all in the Great Circle.
99.
There is actually a smaller circle within the circle as well. And then there's a very large stone you see in the centre there. They're known as the Cove.
The Cove?
And they're reckoned to be the largest stones, or the largest intentionally planted megalithic stones in Britain. And they're the oldest part of Avebury. So the Cove, those stones were actually 3 stones there at one time. There's only 2 now. But they were the earliest part of this complex.
Which isn't going to leak.
And then the Henge, which is the flat ceremonial area that we're walking on now, surrounded by a ditch which was full of water, and then the dike all the way around to that.
With so many stones missing, Alex, how did they know that there were specifically 90 stones here back 6,000 years ago?
How did
they come up with the number 99 stones here?
Well, the archaeologists have found the holes in which the missing stones.
I see.
You'll see as we get around to the next quadrant of the circle. So it's another 100 metres to the next quadrant, but there are where some of the stones are missing. They have actually put
I see. Okay.
So there were 99 stones. 99 is important because when we look at there are just over, so all these houses that are in the middle of the stone circle here, the other side of the houses there is a smaller stone circle within the big stone circle, and the archaeologists know that the small stone circle was keeping a track of the cycle of Venus. Now, so we know that Venus was important because that stone circle over there is related to Venus. The 99 happens to be the number of lunations, lunar cycles, that it takes. 99 lunations take years, and it's also the time that it takes Venus to go to make a 5-pointed star in the sky. I think know about Venus's orbit around the Sun in relation to the Earth's orbit means that Venus appears to move retrograde 5 times over an 8-year period, creating 5 equidistant points in the sky at which she goes backwards, which forms a perfect pentacle. So Venus is one of the reasons that Venus became known as the goddess of harmony and love, was because of the perfect geometry that the star Venus was observed to make in the sky by the ancients.
Okay.
So they recognised that the stationary positions of Venus 5 times over an 8-year period created this perfect geometry. Venus was a symbol of perfection.
Based on what you just told us,
Yeah.
Alex, it sounds like the folks who designed and built this structure must have had very advanced knowledge of things like mathematics,
Right.
Astrological, astronomical rotations of the planet Venus.
Right. Yeah.
They must have had very advanced knowledge. How do you explain this advanced level of knowledge to a Neolithic Stone Age culture?
So I don't know that it really needs explaining, because I think the lifestyle was so different that there would have been people who had the leisure and the time and the silence, right? A lot of silence over, collectively thousands of years.
There were no televisions or internet.
No light pollution. What else is there to do apart from watch the stars?
Right.
And I think they were very interested in timekeeping and cycles and creating calendars.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a calendar that you can make from the sun, right? From solstice to solstice and the equinoxes. There's a calendar you can make from the moon, from the new moon to the full moon and back again, and the 19-year cycle of the lunar standstill, which some of the stone alignments in Britain are related to. But you can also make a calendar out of Venus, and it happens that Venus's star points, the point at which it goes retrograde and direct again in the sky, do make this perfect geometry which the ancients would have noticed. And so they say, oh, well, that star, Venus became the emblematic star, or the representative of harmony, of like Plato's theory of the forms, that there is a perfect reality out there. It has a geometric basis. So Venus's movement in the sky represented that. So Venus was important, and this is why there's 99 stones. It's because it takes 99 dimensions. Is exactly 1 day short of 8 years in solar calendar, and it also happens to be within within 2 or 3 days of Venus returning to the place it was previously, having made the 5-pointed star in the sky. So 99 unites the solar calendar, the lunar calendar, and the Venusian calendar all in one circle.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It's a long-winded explanation.
That
but
they came up with all that level of understanding of the solar systems, the planet's rotation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex.
Yeah.
Based on what I've seen on YouTube, I believe that vast area that we just circumnavigated and that we're still standing in now is only 1/4 of the Stonehenge totality, which 3/4 of which is on the other side of that road, the other side of that road, and over here behind us.
Yes, that's correct.
So this is just 1/4. So this site is by far much more enormous than the site of Stonehenge we were earlier today.
It's got to be
10 times the size. 10 times the size.
Although Stonehenge, the stones that we see now are only actually part of the whole complex of things that were going on at Stonehenge thousands of years ago.
Right,
it wasn't just the stones. There are other features that are now buried. The Cursus, which is a big 1.5 mile long trackway just north of Stonehenge. There were the ancient, very ancient Mesolithic totem poles or flag poles or whatever they were that
Mhm.
were there prior to the stones being put there.
Mhm.
And there would have been other things. I mean, there's the barrow mounds. There would have been a lot more going on around Stonehenge than we see now.
Okay.
So it would have been larger, but yeah, Avebury is a
Understood.
much bigger complex.
Understood.
The stone here, this is the largest, I think it's the largest megalithic stone in Britain. And this is supposedly the oldest part of Avebury. This was here before the Great Circle was built. And it's called the Cove, and this one is partnered with another stone. There was a third stone, which I think stood here, that has been quarried and it's taken away. And that's down there. And this isn't actually the centre of the circle. The centre of the circle is somewhere over just behind that red building. It's pretty close, but these were here before the rest of the circle.
So these three were very significant for kind of
Right.
like a focal point
Yeah.
of energy or a focal point of activity
Right.
on some level.
Yeah.
All right, well, speaking of the other three quarters, why don't we head across the
Sure.
street and take a
Yeah.
look at the stones that are standing over there.
Yeah.
Cheers.